Alright people, what's going on? Space Cowboy here. Welcome back to the channel. Got another video for you guys today. Before we get started with today's video, please make sure to drop this video with a like. It's been helping the channel a lot, so please make sure to continue to do so. Also, make sure to subscribe if you're new here to get more Dallas Cowboys content from yours truly now and in the future. And finally, hit the notification bell to be notified when I post new content or go live. So, what are we talking about today? So we're going to be talking about the Dallas Cowboys front office and just more or less just having a conversation about how I felt they've been over the past decade and just really how they've changed their mantra of going about things, okay? So first things first, when we look at a front office, what are the main things that I look at? So the first thing is with the front office is the overall operations of a team. What I mean by that is the logistics such as creating the facilities, this, that, and the third, to ensure that the team has enough adequate resources to do the best they can, which the Cowboys are, if bar none, the best in the league when it comes to the resources that they have. They're the most valuable franchise in the entire league, in the entire world, for that matter. And they have tons of facilities that help them improve and that can help them improve and get better. So there's that. Number two is when it comes to the acquisition of players, whether that be in drafting, free agency, whatever, trading, whatever the case may be. That's another way of what the front office has to do. And finally, the creation and the assembling of coaching staffs that can help get a team where it needs to go when you have all the players that you need. So those are the three phases that I wanted to talk about. Obviously, I'm not going to talk about the first one I mentioned because the Cowboys already do that. So let's start with drafting now. When it comes to drafting, the Dallas Cowboys have done a pretty good job at finding value, more so in the later rounds, but also the fact of the matter being with these other drafts, hitting on their first round picks. Because if you hit on your first round pick, odds are you're going to get a guy that you can keep for 5, 10 plus years. So since 2010, the Dallas Cowboys have gotten a Pro Bowler every single year, with the exception of 2 years. And if you want to throw 2019 in there with the trade for Amari Cooper, he technically was a Pro Bowler, so you can technically say that the Cowboys gave up a first-round pick for a Pro Bowler. So there's that. So technically, out of the entire decade from 2010 to 2020, which we're not going to include CeeDee Lamb because he has not played it down yet, you've gotten Pro Bowlers all the time except for 2 times with Morris Claiborne and Taco Charlton, which is pretty damn good, okay? And so, with that, it's also important that the Cowboys hit on some other picks to get some value out of them, okay? Now, what I mean by this, I don't necessarily mean that the team, like, if you spend a third-round pick on a receiver, right? So, let's look at drafts such as, you know, when you bring in Michael Gallup into the fold, right, in 2018. Or when you bring in a guy like Xavier Woods and Cheeto and Jordan Lewis in 2017. Or when you get guys like Anthony Brown, Jalen Smith in 2016. Or you got guys like, Terrence Williams when he was at that point in time. You know, even though we know how he is now, I mean, the point I'm trying to get at, and also Sean Lee in the second round back in 2010, the point I'm trying to get at here is that the Dallas Cowboys have done a phenomenal job at acquiring talent in the later rounds, which is very damn good. And because of that, it's helped the team amass a ton of talent, which should propel them to championships and this, that, and the third. Now, another key thing when it comes to the drafting, the Dallas Cowboys, with the exception of 2012 and 2010, have not moved up to acquire a player. They've either stayed put or they've moved back, and they've only moved back only once. So 9 times out of 10 or 8 times out of 10, they'll stay put, and they'll take whoever's best on the board, which is usually sometimes the best option because sometimes the options of trading down usually aren't good, because you can miss out on a player, number one, and number two, maybe the return on investment isn't as good. Like, for example, when you trade down, if you recall, with the 49ers back in 2013, you could have definitely gotten more than just a third-round pick. You should have at least gotten, like, a second-round pick or something of that caliber. And I should also mention, because I know some of you probably forgot, in 2014, we also traded up, but that was in the second round to go acquire DeMarcus Lawrence. But like I'm more referring to the first round, if that makes any sense, right? Because we've traded up multiple times, in the later rounds, especially just this year. I'm just getting at the first round. So with that all in mind, the Dallas Cowboys have done a phenomenal job at drafting. They've been one of the best, if not the best, drafting organization in the entire NFL, with a couple exceptions. And that's important because if you can't nail your draft picks, which is the foundation for your entire franchise being in contention or rebuilding, you're not going to be good in the long run. So there's that. Now, the next part of it comes with free agency. Now, the Dallas Cowboys, and I would say there have only been two situations where the Dallas Cowboys have gone into free agency, spent a lot of money on a guy. 2015 when you got Greg Hardy, and when they acquired Brandon Carr from the Kansas City Chiefs for all that money. I would say, but like if we're talking about like a long-term giving a guy a hell of a lot of money outside of the organization, Brandon Carr was probably the last, he was, in my opinion, the last guy that the Cowboys have ever done that. Usually now the Cowboys just go bargain basement shopping, which it's okay to do that if you get quality value out of those players. The reason why I have an issue when it comes to the bargain basement shopping is that sometimes it's not enough, right? And it usually depends on the free agency class, because not all the time you're going to have the Gerald McCoys, the Dontari Poes, or, you can go out and get a Robert Quinn or whoever the hell you want to go get. But when you do that, and you do acquire those players on more cheaper deals, but they're solid stars, like, I think that's when the Cowboys really found that middle ground. I would say after 2017 and that disaster of a free agency class, you look at what the Cowboys have done since then, and they've done pretty well, okay? They managed to go get guys, they managed to go spend like moderate money on guys that can be solid role players or quality level starters. And that's what I was looking for from the Cowboys. Since since I would say 2018 going forward, the Cowboys have done a good job at getting the players that they want, and then with the contracts they hand out, it's easy to eject them, especially if things change, right? Like when you get Allen Hurns and you have the emergence of Amari Cooper and Michael Gallup on your team, you're not really wanting to pay a guy like that all that money, considering, what happened. But the fact of the matter remains is then you have those situations where you continuously improve. Oh, you go get a Randall Cobb in free agency. Oh, you go get Gerald McCoys and stuff like that. You don't go for the big guys. If I recall, they were close to landing Sammy Watkins back in 2018 in that offseason, if I recall. And that was going to be a hell of a lot of money. And considering what Sammy Watkins, and he's not a trash player, but considering what you've been paying him, and considering the whole talk of at that time where it's like, oh, well, do we let go of Dez because he's not really performing? It would have been the same situation all over again. And the fact of the matter remains is that the Dallas Cowboys have done a pretty good job at some of these near misses, But at the end of the day, right, you can acquire all the players you want. But if you don't have the proper coaching staff to put forth, you aren't going to see success. And this is the part where I would argue the front office did not do a good job at, but I think because of their experiences, they've learned and they really improved. So when you have a guy in Jason Garrett, and yes, when you start in 2010, you're rebuilding your team, right? You're starting from the ground up with a new program, new guy coming in. Yeah, sure, I understand completely when you're looking at the sense of, okay, we're going to take some time to add some players, and we're going to make sure that we can get on the right track. And then when it finally gets there, you bring them back because you feel like you have the formula to win. And then the next 5 years, it's like, well, we have a very talented team. Why aren't we getting where we want to go? And 2019 was a prime example of this, right? You acquire all this talent, and this team should have won at minimum 10 games. Okay? And you only win 8 games, and you even have a losing record at some point. That's not good. And so what I think the Dallas Cowboys realized is that the coach that they had in Jason Garrett was not the right fit. He was not taking the team where it needed to go. And I think that's why you saw them go after a proven head coach in Mike McCarthy, because we're not here to rebuild the program again, right? If the Cowboys had gone 4-12 and all the pieces were falling apart and people were retiring left and right, then yeah, sure, by all means you can go rebuild. But the problem is we aren't there, right? What is our mindset? Oh, we are a team that are a few pieces away and a few tweaks and, bells and whistles away from contending and winning a championship and becoming a perennial Super Bowl contender. So, what do the Cowboys do? What does Jerry Jones, Stephen Jones, all those guys do? They come together and they realize we need a proven head coach that can come in, just take this team where it needs to go, and also has a proven track record. That is the key thing. And Mike McCarthy, luckily enough, was there. It was right place, right time, and the Cowboys got a guy that is a proven head coach, has success in the NFL for quite some time, and guess what? We saw the fruits of that entire hire come about. How so? You saw, and this is what's interesting, because there's like this still the myth that Jerry Jones meddles with all this other crap. And I'm not trying to sit here and say that Jerry Jones was always the smartest tool in the shed, because trust me, he's done some dumb decisions and he's almost made some bad decisions, a la getting Johnny Manziel and this, that, and the third. But the fact of the matter is, and let's answer this honestly, people. Jerry has not really done much regarding the coaching hires at all. And what I mean by that is, you see Mike Nolan come in. You see Jim Tonsula come in. You see John Fassel come in. You see all these new coaches come in. I mean, you have an assistant head coach that has ties to Mike. You look at the coaching staff, and honestly, you can make that direct assessment that Mike McCarthy has full hands-on of what he wants to do. And that is what I think we've been missing. And I think that is the last missing piece the Cowboys need to become a Super Bowl contender, is getting that coaching staff that has that experience to get this team that's now, entering its prime, you should say, when it comes to its run of what we're going to see, and getting that guy to lead them. And yes, we could talk about how Jerry had his love affair with Jason Garrett and how he didn't want to let him go because he's family. And yeah, I get that and all. Hey, you've known him for quite some time, and it's hard to say goodbye to, I'm not saying it's easy, but at the same time, and I think that Jerry and I think Steven really understood this, was that Jason wasn't going to take this team ultimately to a Super Bowl. And the fact of the matter is that now that they have a proven head coach, and you see the way that this team it looks a hell of a lot different. It has a different vibe to it. It has a different mindset behind it. Think about it. And I hate to keep going on and on, but I'm going to try and end on this note of a positive aspect, right? As we just talked about Jason Garrett. The Dallas Cowboys, as a whole, have done a fantastic job at free agency with who they got and the draft. I guarantee you that if Jason Garrett was still here, we would not have taken CeeDee Lamb. We would have probably gone Kalavion Chason or whoever the hell else. And ultimately, I think it's fantastic to see that we have a new change of pace here in Dallas. And I think this front office has finally got its act together when it comes to the coaching staff part, because we needed 3 phases of this entire organization of the front office to come together. We already know Jerry Jones is really good at making money and creating facilities that can help the team work. So they got that part down. The drafting part really has been it's really been more or less good of recent, and even back then, because you look at guys who they've acquired. But basically, you could say, yes, they've gotten better, and they've done better when it comes to player acquisition and stuff like that, especially with, where they were. And free agency they've gotten that down now, where they're going after mid to low level free agents that can come in and fill holes, rather than going after the high priced free agents that don't make any sense. And finally, they've gotten a coaching staff, and more so a head coach, that has a proven track record and can get the team that he had to a championship and, you know, some proven playoff success. So I think I've gone on for long enough. I want to hear what you guys have to say about the Dallas Cowboys front office. Me personally, I think that they've turned a corner. And I really do think that we're going to see a lot of success in the near future, hopefully. So with all that in mind, please make sure to like, comment, subscribe. If you haven't done so already, please make sure to do so. And finally, hit the notification bell as well. And with all that being said, have a good day, guys. Bye-bye.